Hi, Chase here at Cole McCoy coming to you again with another episode of EFES In The Trenches. We're excited. This is episode number 40. You'll see that here at the bottom. Episode 40 that we're excited about today. We've got somebody who I've known for a few years now, somebody who Cole McCoy is getting to know as well, but consistent convention qualifier with Royal Neighbors. Agent of the Year. He's up on stage as the number one agent there many, many times. We're fired up. We've got Tony Bowen with us. Tony, we appreciate you joining us today. Spend some time with us, man.
Anytime.
All right, so we're gonna get rolling. We're gonna interview Tony today. A little bit more organic. Cole and I don't have a bunch of bullet points or anything put together, but we're excited. I know Cole's excited because we got another Columbus boy. Well, maybe not Columbus boy, but another Ohio Buckeye fan on. So, Cole, I'm gonna let you kick it off, man.
Yeah, man. Selfishly, I just want to use you for your connections, Tony. But no, in all sincerity, I went to Ohio State, and I could talk about the Buckeyes forever, but that's not what we're here for. But, man, I would just love to kind of hear your story. I know you write a lot of premium, and anytime you get a top producer, we're all a little bit messed up in the head. So I think this would be awesome to hear. Man, I'm sure there's some things that you do that separates you from the rest of the pack, and I have a feeling as we get into it, there'll be some common things we can get out of it for our newer agents listening. So, man, I would just love, however that hits you, man. How'd you get started? How'd you get into the business? And maybe just give us a couple-minute overview of where you started to how you even got to this conversation, man.
Well, I'm 43 years old now. I've been in the business a little over 16 years. I was actually recruited out of an old electronics store called Circuit City. Okay. I was an electronics salesman. I was, in my 20s. It was kind of a cool job. You get to see all the new technology and big screens and, car stereos and everything. The owner of the agency up here had been coming in and time again. And, I always took care of him, always, wanted to make sure he got the best price. Finally, after, fourth, fifth, sixth time he was in the store, he asked me if I liked it there and if I'd like a different career. Took me out golfing one day. We had dinner, and then the rest was history. I started a couple weeks later, and then just kind of hit the ground running. I started in this business from day one, revolving everything around Medicare. Medicare supplements, Medicare's deductibles, Medicare's rules and regulations. Not only what Medicare did cover, but we were very in tune with explaining what Medicare does not cover, because not a lot of people wanted to explain what they didn't cover. Everybody just wanted to tell you what they did cover. I use those holes or those insufficiencies in Medicare or the Medicare Advantage for the last, 12, 13, 14 years as a way of exploring the options that clients would have to cover themselves. We got a lot of clients that have investments. We have a lot of clients that are being forced to take their required minimum distributions, okay? So where we always started off talking about long-term care, nursing care, final expense and burial, it kind of opened up a bigger door to asking people what are they doing with their RMDs that they don't need. We found that majority of the people would just put them right in the bank. We obviously know that the banks aren't the best avenue for interest rates or for protection, avoiding probate and things like that. So then we just kind of found a way to use life insurance as, there's about 10 to 15 different avenues that why people buy it. We use the phrase all the time, lower income people buy it just to pay the bills. Higher income people buy it to offset their estate. Okay. And then you got everybody in between those. You start to pick up the bigger ticket items when you just start talking about, taxes, probate, nursing homes. These are things that I don't care who you are or where you live. Nobody likes to hear any of those three things. Okay. life insurance has been around for hundreds of years. It's just a matter of finding which button pushes each person. It's real easy when you're talking to a husband and wife. It's real easy talking to a person that, has multiple kids. The only time it's a difficult conversation is when you're talking to a single person with no family, and you do run into those a few times. I tell people that there's two types of people that I can't help. I can't help the extremely sick people with major medical issues, and I can't help the extremely poor people that don't have any money. If you're outside of those two categories, chances are we've got something to talk about, and we've probably got something that we can kind of get going. A lot of this business, I'd say probably 60% of this business, I think that's actually a national statistic, 60 or 70% of this business is all replacement. People are buying their life insurance from everywhere. They're buying it from Alex Trebek on TV. They're buying it from their broker. They're buying it because they signed up at the credit union or the bank. Hell, I'm even seeing policies that are bought down at the local, AAA, the car club. It's just a matter of getting to those people, getting them to compare with what they have to what's available today. Sometimes easier said than done because people are a little standoffish and maybe don't want to compare. But I've gotten pretty good at letting people know that they've got a lot to gain and nothing to lose. Okay. Worst thing that's going to happen when you talk to me for 15 or 20 minutes is I'm going to tell you you've already got a great policy and there's absolutely no need to worry or concern yourself, and go ahead and keep that. That's the worst thing that can happen. The best thing that can happen is you find out that you're underinsured, you've got the wrong type of insurance, you're pulling RMDs that have no substance by putting them in the bank. If you got sick and went into a nursing home, your entire plan or strategy is kind of thrown out the window. And so it's just a matter of spending 10, 15, 20 quality minutes and asking all the questions. I do see in this business, a lot of agents go in, they ask about a life insurance, and someone tells them, yeah, I bought Colonial Penn off the TV. I bought a $10,000 policy. I'm paying $100 a month. They go right in. They could sell them $10,000 at $50 a month, and they leave it at that. They ask no other questions. And they're happy selling a $50 a month bank draft because they kicked out or replaced a Colonial Penn. Okay. Typically, I try to ask, if they have any other coverage. Is this the only one? What's your intent for this? What is your design for this? And then you're trying to find out a little bit more of their family history, their financial background, and then you can kind of put a plan together. Depending on how the client answers those questions, I do tell a lot of people, I'm not here to save you a bunch of money, but what I am here to do is to make sure you get the best insurance available. You take that same person who's probably been spending $100 a month on that Colonial Penn for the last 2 years, they're comfortable spending $100. I'll go to them and say, listen, for the same $100, I can get you $20,000. What would you rather have? But a lot of the agents don't do that. They just try to compare apples to apples. And
so I definitely want to jump in here, Tony. It sounds, you've been doing this a long time. Your numbers speak for themselves. Did you start out, learning how to ask all these questions, or did you start out simple with just a couple products and build on it from there? How did you get from getting recruited at Circuit City to, teaching me something here today about all of these different questions that you're asking and all this premium you're getting? It sounds like multiple products. I would love to hear your story, because as we have a lot of new agents listening, we're starting from a final expense perspective, or maybe you've come from a Medicare perspective, and we're basically looking at one thing. Where did you start, and how did you branch out to do all these things? Because I think that piece of it is going to be really powerful for our listeners to hear your story in that. Did it come easy for you? Was it a grind getting going, or did it just it just kind of like, what is your story in that kind of beginning stages? I'm interested to hear that.
My story it maybe be a little different, but even all the way back at Circuit City, they were a commission-based electronics store. So you made commission on everything you sold. I was always one of those guys that if I'm at work, I didn't want to make the same as everybody else. I wanted to make the most. I wanted to be the top guy. Okay. And the awards are nice to be considered the top guy, but the awards come second to, did I make the most money, right? Did I maximize my potential? Okay. Well, that started from day one in this job because, if you go to build a house and all you got in your tool bag is a hammer and a screwdriver, you're going to be in trouble, right? So the more tools you have in your bag, the easier it's going to be to build that house. So from the word go, we always wanted to talk about Medicare and the deductibles. We always wanted to find out what clients' opinions were about long-term care and nursing care. We always wanted to find out what their plan was for Social Security replacement. If one spouse passes and you lose the other Social Security, what's your plan? What's your plan for burial and final expense? As you go down your little checklist inside of 10 or 15 minutes with each and every client, not only are you going to find that checklist is different from each and every client, but they'll actually appreciate the fact that you're really trying to fine tune what advice and that you're giving them based on their exact situation. Okay. And so it just grew from there. I've only been with EFES now for a few weeks. I've only licensed with, 4 or 5 initial companies, but within that 4 or 5 companies, I've tried to find out, who's got, this particular app, who's got some term insurance, who can I sell a $250,000 whole life if I've got a guy taking $20,000 a year RMD, okay, on his IRA. Already, even from the word go, within 3 or 4 weeks of being a new member here, I'm not content with just grabbing 2-3 companies and selling some final expense. I would ask you this question. You told me a lot of times you work down, Marietta. You work a lot of these smaller towns. I can honestly tell you, I already know in the 5 minutes we've been talking that there's a reason why you probably don't work Dublin or, some of the really nice areas in Columbus. There's a couple reasons. Number one, nobody in those areas are buying a $10,000 final expense policy, right? But I bet you a lot of those clients are taking RMDs. I bet you a lot of those clients are worried about long-term care. I bet you a lot of those clients are tied to the stock market when it goes up and down. And that's what brings in some of the bigger dollars.
I want to jump in.
That's huge, man. Yeah.
I want to ask you, in terms of the diversity, you have a ton of diversity, as you've explained, as Cole kind of extracted there a moment ago from you, in your repertoire, in your bag. How long was the learning curve for you? Because a lot of people that Cole and I talk to, as Cole grows his agency, as we've worked together over the years, we find that a lot of people they just fail to take flight because they're worried that it's too difficult to learn. There's too many moving parts. For you, as you were getting going in your career, how long or how steep was that learning curve for you? How long did it take you to get comfortable?
Well, we always went by a kind of a golden rule. You really don't know even what you're talking about, and you don't get good in your presentation until you've sat with at least 100 people, okay? Our whole theory from day one was, well, you can take 6 months to sit in front of 100 people, or you can take 1 month to sit in front of 100 people. So it really, each person is on their own timetable. But I do talk to a lot of new agents that are new to the business, and I do tell a lot of people that in this business, because there is so much, you're really not going to get really, really good at this job until about your 4th or 5th year. Because there's no books that teach you about, their health problems and prescriptions. There's no books out there that teach you, their family issues, their family values. There's no books out there that teach you how to read a life insurance policy that was bought 35 years ago. It's all hands-on experience. It's all being in a house. It's all sitting in front of the clients. And so you fast forward, 16 years later, there's not a policy I've never seen. There's not a situation I haven't run into, both health related, financially related, or even family related. Okay. Because we've got rich clients, $1 million clients that, they've got 2 kids that are both degenerates, right? If they left them $1 million, they'd kill themselves inside of a month. So when you have a situation like that, you got to kind of structure something maybe a little bit different, right? And using these insurance companies to do systematic payouts because the estate is a little bit of a mess. You got to know those things.
Well, let's shift gears a little bit in terms of you're able, with your diversity in your business, you write a lot of business. I think $300K a year is typically what you're pumping out in terms of life sales. And then you've got single premium business. You're right around $500,000 minimum each year. And you're doing probably at least $1 million a year in annuity business. You got tons of proof of production. What's your number one lead source that you use today to generate those kind of numbers?
Mailers.
Mailers, and what particular demographic or market are you targeting?
Well, that's the funny part. We target 60 to 80, okay, and we are targeting anywhere between $14,999 a year all the way up to whatever the high mark is. I think it's 50,000 or 75,000. Okay.
You're essentially using a final expense lead.
Well, and then lately we've been using a final expense lead. Simply talking about 5, 10, 15, even 25,000 on a checkbox. But I can't tell you how many times somebody will check 10,000 and, for no other reason than they just assume that's what they wanted. And yet, you get to the house and you find out they got $1 million in a brokerage account. And, you walk in there thinking you're going to sell them a $10,000 policy at, $75 a month. And I'll walk out of there with an $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 annual check. So I think that may be another downside to a newer agent. You don't ever want to assume. I've in this business, I've walked into the dirtiest trailer park that you could think of, and yet these people have hundreds of thousands of dollars. So assumption is a big killer in this business. If you assume that these people just can't afford anything, or they might even tell you they are broke. I got a client that cries broke all the time and has got $2 million, and he's just worried to death that he's going to outlive his money.
We were talking about that a couple episodes ago. Cole and I were talking about not judging a book by its cover, because, if you go up to a house that looks like it's $500,000 and you're like, I've literally run a lead before, and I think I've sent a text to Cole where there was a Lamborghini parked out front. And I was like, dude, definitely going to buy that. They never answered the door, never wanted to come back. Cole, we talked about that just the other day, not judging a book by its cover.
I got clients that will go to that house. They won't even pull in the driveway because they see the Lamborghini or the RV in the parking lot or the driveway. They see the $500,000 house. They don't even want to, because they don't feel comfortable talking to somebody that's got money. They feel like they don't have the opportunity to even help them.
McCoy, you've seen it a few times, dude.
Yeah, for sure. I've run into those situations where you have folks. This is over in Ashland, Tony. You know what I'm talking about. As far as that area out in the country, big estate. 2 or 3 properties, in-ground pool. I'm guessing $600,000 to $800,000 property.
Right.
And they're trying to get rid of their house. They lost a bunch of income. They're trying to get on Medicaid. They ended up being able to qualify for extra help with their Medicare. It's like, what in the world? And those are some of my best clients, and I never would have thought in a million years. I've been into places where I've gotten $100 a month or more, and I'm falling to the floor. Literally, like trailers, you're stepping. I'm a big fella, so it's not hard to do. But, so I just love hearing your story, man, of the assumption piece. I'm curious to do all these types of things. Obviously, you've put in a ton of time. Well, I think they say an expert in their field puts in 10,000 hours in that. I love how you spoke to it's a race to 100, and how some agents will take 6 months to get there. But if you can do it in a month, that makes a huge difference. In your mind, if you're speaking to a new agent, Are you keeping hours? Are you are you working 80 hours? Are you finding somewhere in the middle? If you're talking to somebody who's just getting into the business, what's like one thing that you could tell them as just a piece of advice, maybe thinking back to your experience, or maybe something that you've learned that you might have got wrong? Maybe riff on that for us for a few minutes.
Well, I agree 100%. Any new agent that I would ever speak to, and they would ask my advice on what can I do to be better than the guy next to me. It's not really a race for the hours. It's you want to put in as much quality time as you can so that you're not wasting time. In this business, time is everything. And there's a lot of reasons why agents fail. Money management is terrible, right? A lot of new agents fail because they just can't manage their funds. They can't pay chargebacks. They can't afford leads. They cannot manage funds. The biggest one is they can't manage their own time, because when you don't have a boss or a time clock and you're out running around, and I've seen this with a lot of guys, even from my agency, they go out and write a deal on Monday, make $1,200, they take the rest of the week off. Okay. So money management, time management are two of the biggest keys in this business. And I don't know the exact percentage, but I think they say it's got to be close to 90% of most life and health agents are out of the business or fail. It's 92%. A pretty high number. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right there. 92%.
Yeah. So that leaves a very small percentage of people that actually can make it. And to make it, organization is key. Time management is key. Being self-motivated is key. I've always been a self-motivated person. That's number one, I think. And my organization, people make fun of my technology skills, very lacking. Okay. But I was able to get away with that because the clientele that I was dealing with, they weren't technique savvy either. They actually didn't mind the old paper and pencil, paper app. But you got to progress. You got to get better. If you're not learning something new each and every day, you're probably not doing something correct. I don't care what profession you're in.
I've seen you in a short amount of time since we started working together already kind of be astounded by some of the things that we've got in place with the Dropbox, and all that fun stuff we were talking the other day, the cheat sheets. That's scary to think that somebody with your talent and the things that you just mentioned that Cole and I kind of marvel at each time and we agree with, we teach on that. Attitude, activity, how much time are you putting in? Those things are essential. Now it's scary to see you now adding in the technology. That is terrifying for the competition. I love it. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about was, for anybody who meets you, it's kind of infectious. Our friend Michelle Hilliker would say this, and I could tell with you and Cole already. I think Cole's picking up on it. Very personable, very likable. I want to talk real quick on rapport building. How much time do you spend on your rapport building when you're in a home or visiting with somebody? What is your technique? How do you go about it? And how much time are you putting in on that?
That's a really good question, because I think I do take a lot of pride into that part of it. The rapport part for me just comes natural. I don't ever have a pen in my hand. I don't have a booklet in my hand. I typically like to sit back, talk to the client about the weather. I'd like to talk to them about some of the national news that's going on. Ask them if they're from the area. I like to bring up, my wife and my kids and kind of what I'm going through, shuffling around a 12-year-old to basketball tournaments and paying for a 19-year-old in college. These are the things that people want to know. They want to know the person there, not the salesperson. And so rapport kind of comes easy. I try not to jump too fast into the, well, what kind of prescriptions are you on? How much are you paying? You got to build some level of, camaraderie there for them to even open up. And I think that's another mistake that maybe some agents will make is they're just trying to make that sale so fast, and they're just trying so hard to get that sale that they forget about the personal side of everything. And the clients can see that, especially the older ones.
Absolutely. And Cole, I know you probably got a litany of questions here. I want to get this one out before we get too deep into the podcast. Your activity, your schedule, you just mentioned before, you are redlining, you are grinding at all times. You're going to outwork the competition. What is a normal day? I had the pleasure of being in the car with Cole a couple of times. Love seeing him do what he does. What's a normal day look like for you? What time are you up and at it? What time are you shutting it down? What's a normal day look like?
Well, let me start by telling you, for the first 8 years, a normal day was I was at my first door by 9 a.m. and I would never be home before just dark. Okay, that was kind of a golden rule. We never wanted to knock on a door, even with a lead in our hand, once it was dark. You fast forward now, 16 years, lots of experience. I like to think, having at least a 50% close ratio certainly helps. Now it's a little different. Technology is different. Clients have cell phones. Clients have computers. A typical day for me now is I'm up about 9:30. I'm out the door about 10. I don't like to knock on a door now before about 10:30. And I try to see anywhere between 3 and 4, maybe 5 leads a day, depending on if I obviously catch them home. But I'd like to sell 2 or 3 deals and be home by 4 o'clock.
That's every day.
Every day. If you ask my wife, if I brought my wife in here, she says I'm home by 4 every day. So
that's a beautiful thing about being in the business, as long as you have, is you've got that consistency now to where it's almost predictable for you. You know what to expect. And when you say 4 or 5 people, you're talking about presentations. You're talking about seeing 4 or 5 people.
Correct.
Not knocking 4 or 5 doors, seeing 4 or 5 people.
If I can get into the first 2, because the other thing that you got to remember, my average presentation, if I'm into the house and I'm actually sitting with the client, my average presentation is about 2 hours. Okay. That's because we're talking about a wide variety of things. And so by the time I get into my first house, I'm there a couple hours. I go to the next one, I'm there a couple hours. There's 4 hours, maybe 5. And you can understand that if I'm in there that long, chances are that they probably got sold. If not, I got all the facts I could ever need. I've got all the information I can ever need. If I got to go back to the office and pull some stuff up, I can. Or, I simply will give them a follow-up. Typically, though, if I'm in there for 2 hours, the deal's probably done.
Well, Cole,
that's my average presentation. If I'm in a house, it's 2 hours.
Yeah, I love hearing this stuff, man. I come from a purely final expense and Medicare Advantage background. So my expertise stays there, and I've focused on that. I love hearing what you're doing to capture premium. After this, I may want to ask some more questions, but I love hearing that perspective and how you're walking through some of this stuff. Certainly for our final expense audience, this is encouragement too. You put your time in, you get a system down, and if you're not one that has any desire to build an organization or whatever, I think this is huge to hear. Like, look, you can make a ton of money and still have a life with your family. It sounds like you were a grinder in the beginning. You paid your dues, and now it's coming. It's just coming naturally to you because of all that experience. So I'm just sitting here taking notes and listening. I'm still a young guy. I'm looking, man, when I'm 43, I hope I've hit some of those landmarks. So I appreciate what you're sharing, man. And selfishly, I'd love to get some more time with you off the clock too.
Absolutely. I'll share one last thing is a mistake that a lot of agents could make, and I'm coming to grips with maybe a mistake that I made. You want to surround yourself with the right help. Okay. I walked away from about a $7,200 monthly renewal that I won't ever see a dollar of, because of the organization that I left with. He now will keep all those renewals. Okay. So here I am, 43, starting really from scratch. right? I'm going to build my new book. Can I do it? Not a problem. Okay. But I should have done this years and years ago. And you just got to be with the right people, with the right vision. You got to be with people that are super transparent. There's no gray areas. There's no hidden anything. And I came from an organization of 16 years where there was no transparency. Commissions were hidden. Renewals were hidden. Fees were hidden. Everything was just never disclosed. Everything changed by a year-by-year basis. And at that point, I just couldn't take it anymore. You know?
Well, we're super excited to have you here. I know one of the big takeaways from me, Tony, is I've always seen you up on stage, paraded around at the RNA conventions for the past, 7, 8 years. For me, one of the big takeaways today, and I knew this before, but today particularly for agents out there listening in, number one, spending a little bit more time in the home. We're used to the final expense agents that we work with, we train on. That's really our specialty. But we work in the senior market. And so for somebody like yourself, being so diversified, being able to go in there, spend a little bit more time, but it's worthwhile for you and your business, but also for the client because you're going to do a little bit more digging. You're going to find out on just not their life insurance. You're not going to walk away from situations where you're not going to be able to make a sale because it's not going to be a final expense policy. You're doing your research and finding out the information that's necessary for a few other areas to earn more of their business and really be that agent for life because you have earned more of their business. So for me, that was the big takeaway today. I've already known you're a likable guy. I've always, I've had the pleasure of knowing you for a bit. But the diversity in your business, being able to gather more business, more premium out of a home because you are the agent for that family, that's something to think about if you're out there in insurance land right now. My going in looking for only a final expense sale, if you're doing that and just because you don't know where to get started, you don't know the other products, you got mentors like Cole McCoy, like Tony in the business that you can learn from. It's a big, big deal to be able to raise your income and your earning. Just that part alone.
I see it every day. Even this week, I've seen it where I've walked into a home, they have sent a lead or they had another agent. They wanted to buy a $10,000 final expense policy. The agent was more than happy to sell them one. Okay. Here I am showing up at the house. And I say, okay, well, is this the only one you have? Oh, no, I've got 3 other ones. Okay. So the last 4 or 5 conventions that I've gone to with 2 different companies, this has always been a big topic of discussion. They want to know what your agent's average monthly premium is. Okay. Now I'm giving you 2 different companies, both final expense companies, and what their average agent writes on their final expense policies. And the average agent is around $50 a month in premium. Okay. We came loaded with all of our clients and we ran our numbers with everything that I've sold over the last 3 years. My average premium was $112 per month, average. And the only thing that I can honestly tell you the reason why is because before, and I've had this happen where a client says, yes, I'm interested in $10,000. If you could sell me a $10,000 policy, I'll buy it right now. And I got to literally say, well, let's pump the brakes just for a sec. Let's kind of find out what else you got. I wouldn't be doing my job if I sold you a $10,000 policy and you call me 3 years later and we find out that this other policy you've had for 10 years was a term and it runs out. So I want to make sure that I'm doing the entire body of work. And lo and behold, there's a lot of clients out there with 2, 3, 4 different policies. And if you can find a way to consolidate, maybe turn some of those into reduced paid up, and sell one good one, chances are the client gets more coverage and they actually lower their premium.
Win-win.
Let me ask you one question because those are insane numbers and you're preaching to the choir here, buddy. On that $112 average, what is your rough percentage in persistency? How much of those are staying on the books?
Well, so I'm glad you asked that. We just ran those numbers as well. So I ran with a company called KSKJ, a little small Catholic Christian organization, nonprofit life insurance. In 2 years, I had 211 apps on the books, and I had 11 cancel. So that's just with them. Now, Royal Neighbors of America, they'll actually keep your numbers right on your portal. I always try to keep my loss ratio at under 10%, knowing that no matter how good you are, no matter how great you do your job, okay, you're going to lose at least 1 out of 10, maybe even 2 out of 10. Anything more than 20%, you're just not doing your job the right way.
Awesome. I didn't mean that as an interrogation. I kind of knew what the numbers were.
Those are equally
but the perception in the industry is that if you're selling more than $50 an app for final expense, that these people are just going to cancel. But it has way more to do with how you're presenting, how you're treating your people, your presentation, your follow-up, setting it up with companies that will bill correctly. We teach, don't show anything less than $60, which what you're saying is I'm probably not going to show anything less than 80 or 100. But I'm not saying that's what you're doing. But, $50 I think is egregiously low, and I will wage war on this because we're not really helping our people at $50 a month forever.
Right.
Yeah, too many people go in and try and spend our clients' money for them. We try and say, oh, well, they, based off of the house, based off of the car, they can only probably afford this, instead of, like you're talking about, doing your due diligence, going in, finding out what they have, and just getting them in the best situation possible. Tony, I have to say thank you. I know Cole's definitely probably going to hit you up after this because you both are Ohio boys. So I look forward to seeing you again very soon. We'll all three be in Tahoe. I appreciate you, and we're going to have to get you on very, very soon to do this all over again.
Had a blast.
Yeah, thanks, Tony.
Talking shop, and I can't wait to see you guys.
Awesome. McCoy, as always, I appreciate you, buddy. I'll see you soon.
Yeah, later, man.